Hey guys, it's Ithlor. Today I wanted to discuss the Haunt skill. This is a fairly powerful skill that does 575 weapon damage over 6 seconds. The difficulty with it is, because of the fact that the damage doesn't stack, it's 575% weapon damage, like I said, over 6 seconds. So it's not a skill that you can continually cast, but at the same time, it's not something that you can just cast and forget. So it's kind of in between. So it's good damage, but again, not great damage. Represents about 96% weapon damage per second. So here's a pack that we can test this thing out on. Because of the fact that I'm dealing with multiple enemies, I can, and I am, casting it multiple times, because it's now doing the 575% weapon damage to each of the enemies, because I've cast it multiple times. Let me get my gargantuan out as well. And so the spirit will look for targets that are already affected. And so every time I see an enemy that isn't currently being haunted, cast the spell again. And remember, I'm only using the secondary skill. So let's go back to town and see what some of the other additional runes are associated with the skill. The first one is Consuming Spirit. And what Consuming Spirit does is a life regeneration. It regenerates 155 life per second. This is literally just 155 life per second, which is about 900 damage, or 900 life returned. What you'll notice though is I just cast it 3 times for 3 different enemies, but the total damage is still, the total life restored is still only 155. So it has nothing to do with the fact of how many times the spell's cast. It's a flat 155 per second. So let's just do this event quickly, and then we'll switch up the skill. One of the things that makes this skill especially difficult to show off is I have quite a bit of life regeneration and life on hit, so it's not really showing the true 155 that is being gained. So let's go to town. We'll change up the rune for the next one. The next one is Resentful Spirit, which is by far the highest damage per second. It's 383% weapon damage over 2 seconds. So although it's less damage per cast, it's much more damage per second. It essentially doubles the damage. So if you are dealing with a high damaging single target, as an example, this is a great spell to utilize. The trade-off is, before we were getting 575% weapon damage for only 98 mana, whereas now we're getting 383 for 98 mana. So it's a matter of what's more important to you. Is it more important to conserve your mana and have total damage, or is it more important to do the most amount of damage over time? So because I'm dealing with an elite pack here, I'm gonna pull out my dogs as well. And as you can see, I am out of mana, so it's making it challenging in order to continue to use this skill. So like I said, this skill is great for the additional damage that it provides, but the drawback is the fact that it's much more mana intensive, as that example illustrated. The next rune is Lingering Spirit. I think this is the weakest of the bunch. After you kill an enemy, it will linger around for up to 10 seconds looking for additional targets. The spell normally lingers around at least a little bit and looks for other hosts. So as you can see, it just infected another enemy. And it didn't linger around very long because there were enemies nearby, but it did stick around. And again, this will just be like the base damage because of the fact that we're dealing with an elite pack, and it's just the 575. And the spirit's still lingering, trying to find another host. Grasping Spirit. This is a great spell if you're not already using another snare. And so what it does is, for any enemy that it is haunting, it reduces their movement speed by 30%, which is 22% in Inferno. So you can see the word snare coming up because of the fact that they're all being attacked already. It is challenging to actually see the slow, but it is happening. Well, like I said, this is the strongest rune in the bunch if you don't have a skill such as Grasp of the Dead. The 30% slow isn't huge or isn't overly significant, but any snare, especially in Inferno, is beneficial for you. Now, the last rune restores mana, and so if you are utilizing this skill, literally just casting once and then moving on and doing something else, it's a great choice because it actually restores 20 mana per second. And so you're actually restoring, over the course of the battle, 124 24 mana, which is more than the skill cost to begin with, since it only costs 98. The challenge that you run into with this skill is it is exactly like the life restoration, because if you're casting it multiple times, such as I'm doing right now, it still just restores 20 mana per second. And so I will end up losing quite a bit of mana since I have multiple casts. And so again, it depends on how you're using the skill, whether or not it's beneficial for you. Anyways, that's the Haunt skill. And if you have any questions or comments, please leave them below. If you want some future content, please subscribe and look